Qigong model and the Taoist model is that we are our own doctors, we are our own healers, and we do that through understanding the ways of nature, the ways that we work, and really giving ourselves what we deeply need. As we come into the body through the breath and through meditation and awareness, we begin to connect with this energetic being that we are, 36 trillion cells, self-organizing. Then that's the wisdom journey, is that nobody else can do the work for you. People can support you, they can be mirrors to help clarify your own wisdom. It has to be experienced, coming from the present moment, which is ever-changing. Even if you read every book that ever existed, it won't prepare you for the infinitely complex and ever-changing present moment. Really, it's meeting this life as it is with lightness, to empower ourselves that we can be our own healers, and it comes from understanding our patterns. The evidence of a beautiful way of understanding the world is one that empowers you to discover for yourself.
Welcome back to the FitMind podcast, where we talk with experts on the mind, including neuroscientists, psychologists, to Navy SEALs and monks. They share cutting-edge research, fascinating stories, and proven advice for creating a fit mind, one that is full of focus, vitality, and joy. I also wanted to take this opportunity to let you know that we recently released an incredible free course on the app and YouTube called 30 Days of Meditation, Science and Bliss, where we blend together the most recent and cutting edge neuroscience with the best contemplative practices. The feedback we've had so far has been incredible. It's legitimately changed my life and thousands of others. We also now survive entirely off donations. Whether or not you can help us financially, if you could just like or subscribe, comment below, or share this podcast or the course with anybody that you think it will help. Our main goal is simply to help as many people as we can. Today we have an amazing guest, George Thompson. George is a Tai Chi teacher and Taoist practitioner. His journey spans from a troubled youth to filmmaker and Tai Chi practitioner in the Wudang Mountains, in a story that could only be compared to that of the Karate Kid. We talk about him discovering his amazing teacher, Master Gu, and the profound impact of his teachings on self-discovery and overcoming the inner critic and self-compassion, the importance of breathwork, meditation, and daily mental well-being practices, Taoist perspective on life, healing, and embracing challenges as opportunities, insights on mindfulness and integration into everyday life. We talk about filmmaking as a pathway to nature connection and life balance, the transformative power of intuition, kindness, and serving others. He recently released an amazing new documentary, which is free on YouTube, called The Subtle Art of Losing Yourself. The documentary is one of the most beautiful and inspiring that I've ever seen, and it was co-produced by the amazing Louis Schwarzenberg, who also produced The Fantastic Fungi. I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. And without further ado, let's dive in with George Thompson. George, welcome to the FitMind podcast.
Thank you, Josh. Great to be here.
So I'd love to start with your journey. You've had an incredible, I think, Karate Kid-esque story that's taken you to the Wudang Mountains in China. But maybe let's go back a little bit and start with your childhood. What was George like growing up?
Yeah, so for people who haven't seen my work before now, I am a filmmaker, and I share Taoist philosophy, the yin-yang philosophy from ancient China, with so many beautiful insights as to who we are and our potential for wisdom and for peace. And I knew nothing about this growing up. I had never heard of Taoism before. And yeah, growing up as a child, I always loved nature. I was always walking in nature and enjoying that. I was also passionate about climate change, and remember watching Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, and that really awoke an activist in me. I was also, grew up a Christian for a little bit of time, and talked to Jesus, tried to do some prayers to fix my dad's back, but my prayers were never picked up. And I was a bit like, this isn't working. The divine doesn't just answer my calls like it's supposed to. And so then I became an atheist, and was, really still today a big lover of science. And as we can explore in this conversation, the Taoists, their method of discovery is observation. So it's observing patterns. And so, yeah, when I later found Taoism, it really worked with my scientific instincts. But I guess growing up, curiosity. I always loved learning. Always enjoyed working as well. I've had a work ethic where I enjoy taking action. But that also then led to some burnout and some pain, which I could talk about as well.
Yeah, amazing. It's interesting there. That aligns a lot with my past as well. And I agree, a lot of the contemplative practices, it's almost a big surprise when you discover they were using like a sort of early iteration of scientific philosophy for discovery. And the patterns are really what control our lives. So yeah, I'm excited to dive into that. The start of the more recent journey, what was it that drew you to moving to China?
Mm. Yeah, so I finished university, entered into the big bad real world, was delivering food with Deliveroo, cycling on my bike, earning not a lot of money, making videos. So, yeah, I kind of had this vision of being a sort of entrepreneur, doing stuff around climate that but I didn't really know what I was doing. And I thought, well, I'm going to make this YouTube channel and bring people on the journey with me from some clueless graduate to hopefully doing something interesting. I was making videos I thought were good, and I equated my value as a human being with the number of views I was getting, but I wasn't getting any views. And so that meant that I wasn't a valuable human being. And a part of me, which I later called the underminer, who was a troubled wizard, would begin to dominate my headspace and say, "Hey, George, not many friends, still single. Oh, and now you're anxious. You're pathetic. Look at all the other things that you've been given in your life. You don't deserve to be anxious. You're weak." So I had to, get to know this part in my mind, and I really didn't know how to relate to it. So I descended into anxiety and confusion, and I thought, all I've really done is be by myself for like 6 weeks, and I'm in the biggest mental health crisis of my life so far. And so I knew something needed to change. And there's also, like a teaching in that of the pain can be the path. What's in the way is the way. And I've got friends who go on this journey of waking up and understanding who we are, understanding our consciousness, that have come from joy. Like reading Alan Watts, for example. Like, wait a sec, I already think about all of this, and this is stuff I already think about. So that's pretty awesome. If your journey of self-discovery comes from that. But for me, like many of us, it's I'm hurting and I don't want to hurt anymore. I've been running away from this for a long time, and actually I'm going to turn towards it. So literally as arbitrarily as having watched some videos of kung fu monks doing backflips at uni, I wrote that in my diary. And then when I was anxious, I was like, yeah, I want to go learn in a monastery. And so I bought a flight to China, arrived at the Wudang Mountains, which is the birthplace of Wudang Kung Fu and Tai Chi, arrived at a monastery, went up to a monk sweeping the floor. And I said, Ni hao, Kung Fu. And she's like, Wa Budong, like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I said, okay, no worries. Went up to another monk who was carrying tea, and I got up to her and said, Ni hao, Kung Fu. And she's like what are you chatting about? Try this with a few other monks. Turns out it wasn't a Kung Fu monastery to begin with. It was a female-only Taoist monastery with lots of like old grannies who maybe would do Tai Chi, but not Kung Fu. So I just done my research badly. So I turned to plan B. If I can't learn in a Kung Fu monastery, I'll learn in a Kung Fu school. Asked the locals to help me. They ended up taking me to a Tai Chi school. I thought, Tai Chi, isn't that for older people? But I tried it and fell in love with it. I met Master Gu, my Tai Chi master. He's got the ponytail and the goatee. Just happened to be the only English-speaking master on the whole mountain. And he brought me into this stunning world of Tai Chi and meditation and Taoist philosophy. And one big insight, and there's many that I'm sure we'll explore, but just I judge myself as being uniquely messed up. Like, nobody understands my pain. Like, I can't share my pain because I feel shame about being anxious. And then to read these books from 2,500 years ago, from the other side of the planet, of ancient people struggling as well, and their solutions still hitting, which spoke to me that there's a nature here. There's something fundamental about understanding how I work that leads to peace, and that journey continues.
What was it first like when you met Master Gu? What was your yeah, what were your initial feelings towards him? What's he like as a person?
What I love about Master Gu is his joy. His joy is infectious, and like each teacher that we have in life, like friends, books that we read, teachers and guides that we may meet on our journey, they all have their own unique secret sauce, which is because we're all unique. Like the classic, no two snowflakes are the same. Well, I watched a hilarious video of like, well, that's not very interesting because no two anything is the same in nature. No two leaves are the same. No two trees are the same. No two humans are the same. And so, yeah, each teacher has their own gifts. And for Master Gu, it's his joy. For me, that's my experience. And just to give you some funny examples of that, so he would be like walking up the mountain steps, playing guitar, singing Chinese opera to the mountains. Oh, and then in the morning he would, yeah, like sometimes crack his boiled egg open on his forehead, just like that's how he, he would smash it open, and it'd just be like just a funny little surprise, missing high fives, and then with that levity, and I do think like the spiritual teachers that I've met, and if spirituals are where the works for you, like, and I can share my understanding of that. It's a universal concept for me of my connection and my place in the universe. Then yeah, they have this levity. So that was my first impression of him, and then very generously he guided me into this culture, and he really, I was grateful, felt he's generous in how he shared it, because some teachers, they can keep the secret sauce, and certainly in Taoism, you've got to sit meditating for 5 years before the teacher's even going to begin to show you the basic standing meditation posture. Whereas I felt very grateful that Master Gu generously invited me into the culture.
I did get that from his videos, and as well, to me, I think, yeah, fun, lightness, joy, compassion, that's really what I would always be drawn towards in a teacher. I have a lot of respect for people that aren't necessarily drawn to that, and as you said, no two people are the same. Um, but yeah, it's interesting that would be the more inspirational traits. I think to me they were the traits that I looked up to as a child as well,
Mm,
what I
mm,
tried to embody. So yeah, very lucky that he was the the English
yeah.
speaking master on the mountain.
Yeah. His friends would say like, oh, so you two met through Yuanfen, which is their word for destiny, which for them is as tangible as meeting down the pub.
And when you first got there, what was the initial training and exposure like? What was because in some ways you must have been unaware what you what you were in for, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't know what Tai Chi was, didn't know what Taoism was. I had done head few meditations on Headspace at university, but that was about it. So I was really clueless. But like an intention, I was like, meditation is probably gonna be good for me. So yeah, it was. I mean, I had 7 injuries starting off with Tai Chi, which is I was surprised because my wrists were hurting, my ankles were hurting, my feet were hurting, my knees were hurting, my hip, and you'd think, well, soft, gentle Tai Chi, how could that happen? But Tai Chi comes from the martial art culture. So it's a moving meditation. You move with your breath like yoga, but you're standing up and you're imagining you've got all these attackers coming from different directions. And you, yeah, begin to internalize these beautiful, graceful movements, as then I learned to get out of my head and then to actually come into my body, not just as like, eat healthy and run, but like this is a place I can rest. A teacher has so much wisdom, and to yeah, Tai Chi, for me to like actually wow, realize all of this that's already in me that I could reconnect with. And then through these injuries and this training, yeah, like the daily routine is like 4 hours of Tai Chi training a day from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then 3 to 5, and then other cultural things and meditation things as well. But beginning to strengthen my body and to have a functional form of strength. Like yoga is great for flexibility in the kind of this plane, in this kind of the straight plane, but opening the legs wide having strong glutes, strong legs. One of the classes that I teach now is called Strong Qigong, and we get a strong leg and a strong mind from that.
I just wanted to take a quick moment to remind you that we recently released on the app an amazing new course called 30 Days of Meditation, Science, and Bliss. The course and practice has honestly changed my life, and I cannot believe that it's free. The course brings together the latest neuroscience with what we find are the most effective contemplative practices. FitMind now purely survives on donations. And even if you can't help us out financially, you could just drop a comment below. These things help us out so much, and we really appreciate the help. Now, back to the episode. What did those initial injuries, because often you hear that old injuries come up as you start to practice, particularly the moving practices, it seems, Qigong and Tai Chi. I seem to hear it more often. Do you feel that they were old injuries or just weaknesses emerging?
Yeah, just to give you one example, when I was younger, hiking down mountains, my knees would always hurt. And this is something that my family, like my grandfather had 2 knee replacements, my mum had bad knees. So my story at that time was I have bad knees. Started Tai Chi, and Tai Chi, the problem with civilization in terms of our body strength is that everything's flat and even, and we don't need to move as much as our ancestors did. You don't see monkeys going to Pilates. They just are moving in their very nature, and our ancestors moved as their nature. Now in our modern world, we don't need to do that. One problem with the knees is that steps, they are flat. It means our knees not very often are going outside of the normal kind of straight range of motion. So it means all the supporting muscles around them, particularly for me, the glutes. My glutes weren't strong enough to stop my knees collapsing. So I started Tai Chi and had knee injuries, and that story of I've got bad knees came up. But then actually I realized I don't have bad knees, I have weak knees. Because this injury, it was, if I could see its wisdom, it was a signal to say that something needed to change. Like if I just stopped at the pain and said, well, my body's too weak, I can't do this, then I wouldn't have heeded the signal. The signal was that, there's a weakness here. And so, I began to strengthen my knees. Knees over toes guy, shout out to a great YouTube channel if people want to check out, if you want to get stronger knees. And then lo and behold, within that first trip, my knee pain was completely healed. And just, a testament to actually strengthening the body, not just stretching, but strengthening in applied ranges of motion can transform how much energy we have and how injury-free we are.
I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Levin, the biologist's work, actually, but I think in terms of the science, he's probably got the closest representation of how this is working. And he's finding that, particularly with like cancers, there's like a bioenergetic field between cells. At least this is my understanding. And I think there still needs to be some more peer review, but basically when the cells aren't communicating properly, the cancer can spread. And as soon as he adjusts the bioenergetic field for the cells to sort of communicate effectively again, which tends to happen when we're at kind of homeostasis or the effects that we find from these practices, then the cancer will then disappear. And I think it's quite like I've been to a Qigong retreat and many people were claiming like what seemed like very sort of mystical things, but it's interesting that he is finding like something quite similar, that we know these practices even scientifically lead to these sort of states of homeostasis or extremely calm equanimity, downregulated nervous system. And then that just puts you in a state where you're just ready to heal. Yeah, have you come in contact with that as well? People healing many injuries.
Yeah, for sure.
To yourself.
Yeah, and I see the value of stuff like Wim Hof, but my problem with it is that if people are learning this activating breath, and then eventually, they hold their breath out for 2 minutes, and then they get this beautiful stillness because they've just been like hyperventilating and activating their nervous system, and then a break. It's giving an agitating practice to an already agitated society. What I believe is necessary first is to really develop the breath mastery to be able to relax on demand. Because the basic insight is that when we slow the breath down, we slow down the mind, we slow down the heart, we slow down the body through the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. The parachute, parasympathetic, slowing us down. We can do this through slowing the breath. And so that is a key insight. And if there's one thing that our beautiful viewers and listeners can remember is that, like, just begin to bring awareness to your breath. And if you'd like to share one practice with me, the practice that I do the most throughout the day is just a single breath. So powerful. And if people would like to join me, I invite us to take a breath together, to breathe in, to soften the face, and to breathe out. Trying one more, breathing in, breathing out. And that's it. So easy, so simple. And that's something I do throughout the day. And I've got to a stage now where my nervous system automatically gives that to me when I notice stress. 90% of the time, I notice stress. My stress is here on my forehead or clenching of the throat. I notice that. And then immediately that soothing breath comes in. So that's where we can get to with our practice. So Qigong is a moving meditation, moving with the breath. It's a way to learn how to regulate our nervous system and then strengthen the body through movement. And that breath control is something that, okay, we do consciously in practice, but then eventually the nervous system begins to learn and can present it to us automatically.
That's usually how it will emerge for me too. It feels like a
Mm,
fist somewhere in the
mm,
forefront or mid brain, which will
mm,
generally relax. I also find the moving practices are just so much easier to stack than more meditation, which is just another major benefit. So you've spoken about dealing with the inner critic or an evil wizard. I mean, Rinpoche might call this the monkey mind, and some Westerners might call this ego identity. So,
mm,
how did the Tai Chi and meditation and the Taoist philosophy, how did that help transform your relationship with that inner critic?
mm. A classic story from the Taoist canon is the three vinegar tasters. So there's around a big vat of vinegar. There's three men. And these are not any ordinary men, but the three great philosophical, great philosophers of the East: Confucius, Buddha, and Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu being the founder of Taoist philosophy. Confucius goes to take a sip of the vinegar and he's got a frown on his face. The vinegar is a metaphor for life, and life is sour. And so, since life is sour by its essence, we've got to work really hard in order to control life, in order to make it sweet and good. So, we've got to have structures in society. People have got to be very benevolent and working really hard to be good. Life sour. So, frown on the face, work hard. Then the Buddha tastes the vinegar, and the Buddha is trying not to react because he knows that if he has aversion to the vinegar, then he will be lost in suffering. If he has craving after some pleasure outside of him, he will be lost in suffering. So just don't react. Then Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, takes a sip, and this time he's got a smile on his face. A smile on his face, tasting the sourness of the really sour, bitter vinegar. How could he have that? And Lao Tzu says, well, yeah, this is the nature of the vinegar, to be sour. If I went after this, being all sad, trying to fight that reality, then I would show I would know nothing about fate. So that's why I have a light smile. So that's a beautiful story that's indicative of the Taoist approach to healing and to joy. And really, it's meeting this life as it is with lightness. And that lightness comes from a perspective that we can get deeper into, of like really understanding with clarity who we are. So we're not so attached to maybe what you could call the monkey mind, that thinking and that craving and that constriction and contraction, but instead to open up into more flow, more ease, more flexibility. So applying it to the inner critic, yeah, the underminer, that's what I call my inner critic, is a part of being human, you know? In an infinitely complex world with this little brain where uncertainty may mean death, this brain tries to work through all the things that could go wrong. And if I am bad and things go wrong with me, at least the locus of control is with me. Then I can get better. So, like, I'm bad now, get better. The power is within me. It's actually more scary for the brain to say, well, there's, yeah, sour stuff out there, there's dangerous stuff out there, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I've got to release control and embrace uncertainty and mystery and just trust myself to move from the present moment. So we actually have a biological tendency to internalize external challenge into stories about how we're not enough and we're not good enough, and life's painful and we're flawed in various ways. So that's the sourness that, can bring people down. But like, if we can understand that, that's the nature of being a human being, then compassion arises. Compassion naturally arises when there's understanding. So for me, okay, the undermine is there. It doesn't make me uniquely messed up. This is part of being human. And if I don't fight that, if I actually embrace this is who I am, even if there's parts of me that judge me as being weak, can I welcome that and say, okay, yeah, that's fine. This is part of my present moment experience. And then as I found, the more I could extend that compassion to all parts of myself, that's then when I began to really transform and to find that peace and ease and joy.
Beautifully shared. I love that. And it's so true. We put a lot of focus on the heart qualities. There's some evidence that the heart qualities change the default mode network quicker. But I love what you said about understanding being the foundation of that. And yeah, that I can see how that could increase your ability, or it just spontaneously arise from the understanding. And you can also, to put it in, had Shamil Shandaria on fairly recently talking about the Bayesian brain hypotheses. And to put it in somewhat some of the neuroscience terms, they would say that we would have layers of prediction errors. So I was expecting the vinegar shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be sour, or I should have drank something else, or whatever it might be. There's an expectation of what didn't happen, which creates a prediction error. And then that will create suffering. So the meditation is coming down the stack of that and bringing us closer to its true nature, to use Taoist terms, or how it really is, or however you want to present that. So yeah, I think it's just such a powerful practice.
Yeah, and the coming down, that's such a important distinction because yeah, the brain is here and this voice in our head. So that's normally how we identify ourselves with, I am George, that's me, I have a body, I am in a body. And that leads to disembodiment, like I'm kind of this separate psyche, like a motive consciousness inside this flesh robot. But actually, as we come into the body through the breath and through meditation and awareness, then yeah, we begin to connect with this energetic being that we are, 36 trillion cells, self-organizing. The gut has its own brain, hundreds of millions of neurons, and there is a lot of wisdom. And yeah, like I said earlier, like not just the body's a thing to keep healthy so your brain's healthy, but like it can be a teacher. And like connect with your gut. What does that mean? When you're making decisions, but to take a breath and to come down into emptiness. Emptiness is one of the key words in Taoism. It's actually my name that the Master Gu gave me, Shu, because that was always the thing that I found hard. It's like I'm a Westerner that wants to do, and so then to trust emptiness, to not just rely only on my thinking mind, to come into my body, to then intuitively, kind of, it's something that all of us have to experience. It's not something that you can really explain with words, but to intuitively check into more wisdom. That's the only way I can really put it. So like to have a more intuitive way to make decisions as opposed to just relying on cognition.
That's a great example, actually. How would you just, I feel a lot of Westerners struggle with emptiness as a concept, partly potentially because you can't understand it as a concept. But for those looking to try, how would you describe it?
Mm. I think like always coming from experience, like that's always the way into the deeper philosophical understanding. So we're having a shower, not together. You're having a shower in your own house, and so you have ideas come up. You know, you're finally not on the technology. You have these insights, and then you're rushing out to go take some notes because you had these moments of insight. You're walking in nature with the dog. You have these moments of insight. So this emptiness, like when we're not filling our mind, then it creates the spaciousness, another key word, spaciousness, for then that intuitive insight to come up. So to firstly protect that space, to carve out that space every day, which is why a daily meditation practice is so life-changing, because you can really then begin to train your heart and mind to firstly enjoy being in that space. And then secondly, what can come out creatively. It's not just be empty, do nothing. Not that we are seeking to do something from that space, but if it does come out, then yeah, like for me, all of my films have at least been created, if not improved, from my meditation practice. Because I can get to this beautiful space where I'm not seeking it, but then eventually, I am visualizing, yeah, like my whole film. Like I was in a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and yeah, my recent one, I had a whole, yeah, like a 2-hour show that I'm going to do. Like I've been doing ecstatic Tai Chi and sharing philosophy on, yeah, for my film, did like a 200-person movie theater event. And I was just visualizing spontaneously this whole thing come through. And it's just a really deep and beautiful experience. If I was craving after that, if I was seeking that with the rational mind, I would have blocked that spaciousness. So that can be kind of more like to help, maybe I'm guessing from this audience of people want to do stuff, enjoying science, enjoying self-growth and learning, and like that is me. That still is me. And I really would invite our viewers and listeners to consider really carving out more space, because I have found it really powerful. One more thing is just then the connection that can come from that. So this is when I get more spiritual. Yeah, so what is spirituality for me? It's my understanding of something bigger than myself, and the extent to which that understanding is a resource that can support me. So it's the understanding and the resourcing, coming back into connection with the source of life. So in emptiness, as I'm present with my lived experience, this breath, this body, this moment, this planet, then I come into relationship with the mystery that is inherent to our being. And when I do that, I begin to dissolve and shed this separate George story of like me being alone facing this big dangerous world outside of me, and then actually begin to transform my identity to realizing that I'm an aspect of this whole, this great interdependent unfolding.
I think it's very similar actually, that there is, because it points to there being no sort of independent existence. And I think even fairly well established now, the default mode network can be shut off, which leads to this no separation between the doing and the doer,
Mm.
or that sort of selfhood collapses, and then we spontaneously feel connection with the world and everything beyond that. So is that the same? Would you say there is no independent existence? It's pointing to no independent existence and emptiness of that as well.
Mm. Yeah, I could give you the origin story of the universe for the Taoists, if you'd be interested in that.
Definitely.
So this is chapter 47 of the Tao Te Ching. Need to confirm that. So the Tao Te Ching is the foundational text of Taoism. So it's the kind of core, stunning piece of philosophy. It's 81 chapters. Each chapter is very short, only a page, and yet it's very timeless, deep wisdom. So the Tao of Taoism means the way or the path, and it can mean the ways of nature, so the ways of the universe, or it could be the ways of Josh, the ways of FitMind, the ways of our beautiful viewers and listeners, the way of knitting, the ways of carrots. Everything has its own Tao. And so when we understand the Tao, we can harmonize with it. So that's the general, like the observation, the scientific technique that we've talked about, observation, understand the way. So the origin story of the universe from the Tao Te Ching is the Tao gives birth to one, one gives birth to two, two gives birth to three, and the three gives birth to the 10,000 things. So the Tao gives birth to one. So that, like the emptiness that we've been talking about, in their view, like there had to be nothing before something, and that nothing, like the physical nothing, had to hold the potential for the material world. And so the Tao is this potentiality, and this is, the mystery, even for the scientific story of the universe, of the great, the Big Bang, is like, well, what set it off? And if we live in this deterministic universe, then you need the first cause. And a religious person would say, well, God set the whole thing off, who's the causeless cause. Like God can start off without anything else. But the problem with that is that, well, if God can start without a cause, then why can't the universe start without a cause? Can that be spontaneous as well? So the Taoists have a organismic understanding of the universe, where they see it as a spontaneous unfolding, but they still see like that potential of the emptiness before form as the Tao. That's the word that they put in it. So Tao gives birth to one, one gives birth to two. So from form and material beginning to form in the universe, then differentiation is formed. So yin and yang, light and dark, being and non-being, contrast. Two gives birth to three, so yin and yang interact. So a mother and a father give birth to a child. Two gives birth to three, three gives birth to the 10,000 things. From there, then we have all this multiplicity and duality and abundance. But they can still bring it back to the fundamental unity of life, the apparent duality, the separation between life and death. There's an apparent duality, but there could be no life without death, could be no death without life. All of it in this great interconnected flowing web. So certainly, similar to ideas of Buddhism, which are generally, more popular in today's zeitgeist, the Taoists see it in the same way: spontaneous unfolding, interconnection.
Yeah, the emptiness and what you just beautifully described. I feel like it is really a relief that, okay, this brain can't really understand what is happening. Even my best prediction about George, it's not a real prediction. I can't understand his gut health, his past experience, why he's doing what he's doing. And in many ways, that does just bring us back down into the body and into this more relaxed and open state. Okay, I cannot fully understand what you're thinking or what I think you're thinking. And therefore, I don't need to. And often what that leads to is just more connection, more openness, more spontaneity. So I think you also mentioned a little bit earlier about patterns. How do you, is there like because I think a lot of people would go to us like a psychologist today, and we would be looking at patterns. So is there a specific sort of workflow that you would, in a way, you would address patterns?
Yeah, so again, the Tao, so it's like understanding the ways of nature, and a remembrance of like psychologists and therapists is amazing. And like I have a therapist, and to have someone to hold space who's trained in that is beautiful. But like a remembrance of that, meditation teachers have been working with humans that have been struggling for as long as meditation has existed, which is thousands of years. And so yeah, like I think there can be a disempowerment if we put healing in the hands of just those that have qualified in a degree in something, because actually the Qigong model and the Taoist model is that we are our own doctors, we are our own healers, and we do that through understanding the ways of nature, the ways that we work, and really giving ourselves what we deeply need. And like needs consciousness, I think, is a really, really important thing. And nonviolent communication has given me a language to be able to understand myself. If people type in nonviolent communication book, find that book by Marshall Rosenberg, stunning, life-changing book. So what do I need as a human being? Yeah, like, so what are these patterns as a human being? Yeah, connection, independence, safety, food, to be seen, to be celebrated, to be respected, to have meaning and purpose. The list continues. And so then each one of those needs has its own pattern. And then you are a unique being, just as I am, and just as we all are. And so then, what needs are more dominant and important for us will be different. And so then that's the wisdom journey, is that nobody else can do the work for you. People can support you, they can be mirrors to help clarify your own wisdom. But wisdom is inherently, it has to be experienced. It has to be coming from the present moment, which is ever changing. Even if you read every book that ever existed, it won't prepare you for the infinitely complex and ever changing present moment, which is great because that makes life fun and interesting. Otherwise, we'd be just robotic, mechanical machines. And so this intuitive wisdom is really the beauty of life and the journey that those that want to take the path are stepping on. The stepping step by step, piece by piece, part by part, breath by breath, day by day, better understanding ourselves, falling over, picking ourselves back up, falling over again, picking ourselves back up. So yeah, maybe that would be my starting point, is to empower ourselves that we can be our own healers, and it comes from understanding our patterns.
Yeah, I agree. And the same thing, really. You just can't, the other person couldn't fully understand the depths of what you're feeling. So if you do empower yourself, I mean, you're in a much greater position to help yourself because of your understanding, particularly as you start to investigate with tools like meditation and Tai Chi. So what are some of your like personal go-to daily practices if somebody's struggling? I think anxiety, addiction, depression would be the major three right now in the zeitgeist. What would you recommend for those people?
Mm. So daily practice. So to hurt is to be human. We have awesome potential for peace, wisdom, and balance. Practice is the path. So to like compassion to this moment. To hurt is to be human. We live in a world that isn't supporting us to get our needs met. And we live in a world of isolation, disconnection, mass ignorance that are destroying the life support systems of our planet to support us. It's no wonder so many of us anxious, addicted, and depressed. And yet we blame ourselves. Like, I've got a chemical imbalance in my brain, or it's my fault because I'm weak and I deserve this, or I don't deserve love, I don't deserve wholeness. So to hurt is to be human. Like, it's not your fault. There's stuff you can do to change, but really the journey is compassion to the life that's right here. That's the magic. And in my journey of like sharing meditation, like, there's parts of me that can judge myself of like, well, I'm not perfectly at peace at all times. I'm not the Buddha, therefore I'm a fraud and an imposter. And I've managed to work with those parts and actually release that pressure. It's like, no, like, the value that I can give, and really the whole point of this journey is to meet the life that's here right now with compassion. And the beautiful thing is that that's a practice. Our heart and mind can get used to the chemistry of anxiety and self-judgment, and it can get used to the chemistry of empowerment and compassion. So to hurt is to be human. We've got awesome potential. Practice is the path. Then daily practice, daily practice. So like, if we're creating an energy of compassion to the life that's right here, and we do our practice once a week, that's not going to be really doing our full justice. Like, hey, doing it once a week is great, but can you do more? Daily is the key. Next principle then is, don't make your practice so big that you don't do it. Don't make your practice so big that you don't do it. That's one of my key mantras. So that, even though those breaths that we took earlier, so easy. That's at what, 10 seconds for one breath? But that is a really, really powerful tool that if you begin to do that 3 times in the day, even once in the day, your life will change. Because what you're doing is beginning to develop your relationship with your own breath to help you relax your nervous system, and then to create compassion as a natural consequence of that spaciousness that you develop. So don't make your practice so big that you don't do it. Then in the morning, so that's the time. can you, when you wake up, just go straight into your practice? Because sure, everyone has their own time that works for them. I like most of us, have grumpy George that can be alive in the morning, and like, it makes sense from a nervous system perspective, because cortisol is what wakes us up. The stress hormone literally flushes through our nervous system to wake us up. So no wonder that a lot of us feel less resourced and more anxious first thing in the morning. However, if we can get our practice into that the moment we wake up, like, maybe go to the toilet, but then, like, yeah, just jump straight into it. Super powerful. Don't make a practice so big that you do it, but don't do it. What's the smallest you can do? So my morning practice is MMA, and it's not mixed martial arts. It's move, meditate, affirm. So I move, I do qigong, or I dance, and then I do seated practice, because I do think there's something in the clarity of the mind of seated meditation. And then I affirm. I speak my empowering truth. This is the affirmations. I used to have my woo-woo alarm, woo-woo, woo-woo, and I'd really struggled with the, like, believe in yourself, you can do anything. Like, as a British person, I wasn't quite sure about that. But I really, really believe in the power of affirmations now, because it's the technology to work with our storyteller. We are storytelling creatures. And our nervous system and brain and heart can't distinguish between that which is imagined and that which we experience. And so if each morning my affirmations is, with compassion, humility, moderation, integrity, I serve fearlessly. I am on a mission to inspire balance for people and planet. And I say that each morning. So I'm chied up. I'm in that energy of my, like, full empowered self. And even if that only feels true for that 1 minute that I'm doing that affirmation, then I'm back into grumpy George. That still is an experience for my nervous system that then can begin to have that as an option. Yeah, like, my empowered, whole, joyful self is an option. So that practice, MMA, and you all have your own practices, so take what resonates, but that could be like 2 minutes of movement, 2 minutes of 5 breaths. So it could be like playing one song, have a track snack, 5 breaths, saying one sentence, I'm really, really nice, whatever your sentence is. And then you can adjust it. So I do 30 minutes in the morning, and then I have another practice later in the day. But yeah, adjusting it to what works for you.
Yeah, I love that, because we're all looking for the one size fits all, and it's very difficult to recognize that, as you said, everybody's unique, everybody's different times in your life. It's perhaps better to do more. The tricky part with that is sometimes the ego will jump on and say, "No, you don't, just skip it today." So, how important is breath work in your personal practice? And is there any specific, like, simple breathing technique you could share, perhaps, or that you use?
Yeah, so like I've been saying, I'm passionate about the down-regulating breath, the slow breath, and the foundational breath. So a few practices, 4-7-8 breathing is really beautiful. Breathing in for 4, holding for 7, breathing out for 8. Box breathing, breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding out for 4. That can take us to a deeper practice, and I could talk more about that if you want, but the deeper practice is Taoist true breathing. So Taoist true breathing is the breath that emerges when your breath is so subtle, so quiet, so gentle, that you can barely perceive the breath coming in and out through your nostrils. And the breath happens by itself. So it's just like so gentle, so slow. And deep states of concentration can arise from that breath. And it's really beautiful. And box breathing is how I teach it. So you start with the box breathing, so then you can get used to holding the breath out, holding the breath in, relaxing in those breath holds. And then instead of having it like a box, then it's just beginning to make it more like a wave or a circle, where there's this still point. And yeah, maybe you'll rest in that still point, but you're never holding. So actually the Taoists, they don't like to hold the breath, because it's a blockage of the qi flow, the energy breath flow. So like qi meaning energy and breath. And so they like to get to this Taoist true breathing. I personally do love holding the breath. I think it's firstly accessible and easy. and then it's a tool on that journey. So eventually the Taoists want you to have this really gentle, slow breathing.
So most people will be wondering how throughout the day they'll be walking, eating, working. How do they apply mindfulness in those instances? The common thing to do will be, okay, remember, monkey mind's chattering, relax, come back to the hands or whatever they're doing, to the legs perhaps. But then immediately they're off again. Monkey mind's chattering again. And then 5 minutes later. Yeah, so how do you apply it in those instances?
Mm, mm. If somebody has the opportunity for extended silence, I would say that has been transformational for me. So Vipassana has been a very important tool on my journey, which are the 10-day silent meditation retreats. You become a monk for 10 days, no reading, no writing, no eye contact, no speaking for 10 whole days, meditating from 4:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's a strong practice. It's difficult. Some of the most challenging things I've done in my life. But really that helped me drop much deeper into understanding the monkey mind and to slow it down in a way that Tai Chi is a beautiful re-embodiment, but it doesn't, like the Vipassana complements the Tai Chi so well because it's really just dropping into stillness in a way that is then possible with Tai Chi. For me, at least after the Vipassana, that's when my Tai Chi got a lot deeper and more the subtle vibrational being that we are, that sounded woo woo to me before, and then I began to experience it. So that would be my first thing, is like, if you can get away to do retreats, then that can be beautiful. But then, like, the key bit is, how do we bring it back? Now, that's the key. That's the medicine. If it was that we could only find peace by escaping to retreats or mountains, then these tools wouldn't be very helpful. And it's compassion to the life that's here. That's spaciousness and ease to the life that's here. That's the training. That's the beauty that is available to us from this path. So how do we do it? So firstly, just intention. Just have that intention. I intend to meet myself with compassion and ease and spaciousness. And like you said, like we remember, then we forget. We remember, we forget. That's the journey. Meditation is about awareness and equanimity, awareness and compassion. So if it is that when we forget to do our compassion practice, we beat ourselves up, we're missing the point. So, and that's something that I would do. It's like, I wasn't present for that moment, and then I beat myself up. And in Buddhism, that's called the second arrow. So you've got the first arrow of, the pain that's here, stress, grief, shame, whatever. The second arrow is I shouldn't be feeling this. I should have been more present. I should have experienced less grief, less shame. So intention, compassion, whether or not you achieve that intention, and then ritual for me. So it's like creating those moments of spaciousness. So for me, like I love coffee, and self-help people complain about it. I still enjoy it. And to really be with those first sips of the coffee and like hold it against my heart, to take a moment with it. And that richness, it's not like I've got to do my gratitude practice, like, oh, what a bore. It's like, no, like, wow, so much richness available in the present moment. So what can the rituals be in your day?
Yeah, beautifully put. I agree that the self-compassion is the trick, and that's really when the mind will usually get back in. I should not be feeling this way. I should not be. But each repetition is just that. In the same way you would work out in the gym, you get stronger each time you come back. And it does not matter how many times you come back. But the mind will try to jump in at that point and be like, I've just done a 10-day retreat. I should be better at
Yeah,
this by now. I
yeah.
should start to see results. I find the mind is very non-linear. And if you do hear about a lot of these masters, they do have profound realization, and they still have those major, like, all of everything comes up. So I wonder if you found that too, that at each point there's kind of a re-humbling. I find you feel like you start
Mm.
to get the hang of it, and then there's a re-humbling of, oh no, actually, maybe I don't have the hang of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the beautiful teaching of impermanence. Like, this too shall pass. Even those deep moments of clarity and insight, they pass as well. And the Taoist teaching of flow, then, like this river of life and these currents of life. And it's kind of the metaphor of, like, we can steer, but, like, if we're trying to go upstream, we're resisting life. I should be higher up on this river by now. I've been meditating. Like, I remember when I first got to Wudang, it's like 3 months in. I've been meditating for 3 months now, and my brain's still thinking. I should be better at this. This is rubbish. I'm not built for meditation. And yeah, and then, those judge, I've already named those judging parts of, like, George, you share meditation, and you should be perfectly at peace at all times, or else you're an imposter. That's my perfectionist part. And the language of parts really helps me with that, because it's like, okay, I have a perfectionist part, but that's not all of me. This is a part of my psyche, part of the energy arising in the present moment, and that's okay. So then that's when, for me, the teachings of compassion, we can really apply them. So it's not just like, well, compassion is super beautiful, and the Taoists and the Buddhists talk about it. Internal family systems, which I'm training in, is for me an innovation in the teachings of compassion, because what internal family systems is about is really the acknowledgement that our mind is multi-centric. It's not bipolar, it's multipolar. We have all these parts that come up. So I've named my underminer. I've got my taskmaster, which is my inner disciplinarian, who I honor because it helps me work and do all the things that I'm passionate about that can take over. Then I've got this perfectionist part that is like, my inner samurai that wants me to be perfectly at peace and perfectly meditating. And then I've got my people pleaser, and I've got all these parts in me. So then we've got this self energy, awareness itself, the spaciousness, the consciousness within which all these thoughts and feelings and sensations and parts arise. And we come in and out of relationship with that. Maybe that parts begin to blend over, and, that imposter part, say, may come up. It's like, yeah, I didn't hold that class very well. And, that imposter part blends in the language of IFS. It's like, ah. And then I notice it and I take a breath, and then, yeah, I'm back. And that's one sentence to close this little bit on, but you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
I'm starting to learn a bit about IFS as well, and I agree. It does seem like
Mm,
a major innovation. I don't know how recent it was, but it's extremely
yeah,
impressive,
the 80s,
actually.
90s, and yeah, it's powerful.
Your incredible new documentary, which I honestly, legitimately found probably one of the most inspiring and beautifully shot documentaries I've ever seen.
Mm,
What was it that inspired you to create that film? And
mm,
what message or experience are you hoping that it'll deliver to the viewers?
mm. Yeah, beautiful to hear your experience. And yeah, the film's got like 650,000 views at the moment. It's getting 100, like 50,000 views a day, which is so exciting. And people, like, just the
Wow, well
comments.
done.
Yeah, it's 2 years of work and load of challenge through that journey, getting frauded and scammed, losing all of my money, moving out my flat, moving back with my parents, struggling to pay the team, and loads of growth in that journey. My organization is called Balance is Possible, and I'm almost a prisoner to that vision of hope. There's parts of me that despair with everything happening in the world, and yet I have really found deeply the potential that all of us have, the potential that I have, the potential that every human being has, and therefore the potential that we have as a species. This Tao, this wisdom built into us. If we can work with those patterns, we can access that potential. So balance is possible. That's what my whole life mission has turned into, is to advocate for our potential, for peace, for wisdom, for balance. And this film, I see filmmaking as the medium through which I express that mission. And so I'm making philosophy in nature adventure films. So, people want to learn about the world, philosophy. They love to see this beautiful, stunning, living planet that we are a part of, not separate from. So that's in nature. And then adventure films. So yeah, like I go into jeopardy, and you follow me as not the voice of God like David Attenborough. I know everything about nature, and I'm going to speak in a slow, soothing tone, and you're going to trust me all the way. And whereas I'm like, I hurt like you do, and yeah, I have been learning that there's great teachings that can help all of us. And do you want to adventure with me? Join the adventure. So this film's called The Subtle Art of Losing Yourself, and it's recorded in Scotland, and it's in the Cairngorm Mountains in the deep, dark depths of winter. And we see the amazing animals, snow hare and reindeer, and the amazing birds and squirrels, and they're all surviving on this snow-capped mountain. And we see their intelligence and their emotions and their lived experience of, the desire to play, fear, running away from predators, and then cuddling with family, so much of it familiar. And then we ask the question, well, if they're intelligent, experiencing, feeling beings, then what does that say about our intelligence, where we come from? And then we adventure together through the mountains to discover our place in the universe and our potential.
What would you say is the importance? You put a lot of emphasis on reconnecting with nature. What have you discovered about the mind, spending time in these wild places, and why do you think that modern life has like disconnected us from so many of these insights and experiences?
Yeah, like coming, say, to the Buddha, the Buddha had a religion started after him, but he really was a scientist, and his laboratory was his own mind. And so the showing the evidence of the evidence of a beautiful way of understanding the world is one that empowers you to discover for yourself, not just saying this book says the world works in this way and you've got to believe this and that. But actually, hey, this is my understanding, but this is an offering for you to integrate and to then make it a lived understanding, because that's when it becomes wisdom, right? We talked about wisdom as intuitive from the present moment. If I say, thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do this, yeah, it becomes rigid and dead. Like the wisdom is in this book as opposed to coming through you as a living human being. So learning about the mind, yeah, it's like, firstly, these insights have been just around for as long as we've been human. It's like if we actually come into ourselves, instead of having to rely on external, outside in learning, I've got to read the books, I've got to bow down to those in power to give me the truth. It's like, yeah, people who have trained a long time to respect, experts, not to kind of go to the full fake, everything's fake news thing, but to actually empower ourselves that, there is truth and discernment that we can come to through our own wisdom journey. So then with the mind, what we can discover is that, yeah, we are this complex being, and for me, consciousness is an emergent property out of energy. And Western philosophy has a dogma to say that there's matter here, unconscious matter, and then consciousness emerging from it. This theory of the universe is called materialism. So everything is just unconscious, and then as the process of evolution happened, nervous systems and brains evolved, and then eventually these nervous systems and brains could integrate all the sensations that this organism was experiencing into then a lived felt experience that we then call consciousness. Now, there's a few challenges of that. Firstly, like, well, when did consciousness emerge? Because that means that there's a point at which in life that life, is, if we go backwards in time from us, so we're experiencing, feeling, thinking beings, and then, okay, maybe monkeys are feeling, not thinking, and then bats, what's it like to be a bat? Feeling, thinking, not thinking, but feeling. Worms, now, like, we're getting at worms now, like, are they just automatic biological machines? Like, they curl up into a ball when you reveal light to them? Is there any conscious experience in that? Now, if it's not worms, then we've lost consciousness. Consciousness is gone. Then what about the trees? The trees, just to give you one amazing example, acacia trees, when a giraffe comes and starts eating their leaves, will release a horrible sap, a disgusting sap. but the giraffes hate. And then the acacia trees also set off a gas to let all the other acacia trees know that the giraffes are here. So all the other trees then release this sap. So then the giraffes move on and the acacia trees are protected. So acacia trees fart to scare off giraffes. Now, surely that's intelligent, but is it consciousness? So is that there's a sensation of, okay, being eaten that is then integrated by and responded to by the consciousness of the tree, or is it just all biological chemistry? So these are mysteries, but yeah, as I'm learning more about the mind, it's like at a minimum, we've got to really expand our idea of consciousness to all of the animal kingdom, because yeah, we're not separate from it, we're not superior to it, and the film goes into that. And then for me, and you don't have to believe as much as I do, but like I believe, it seems to me that given consciousness, like our planet's bursting with beings that are experiencing life, and why is there this hard, rigid divide between animals that are, we believe, since their brains and nervous systems have experience, but then trees aren't. One more example is the sperm and the egg, right? Sperms and eggs don't have nervous systems or brains. So according to the materialist worldview that dominates our world, then they have to be unconscious. But somehow the sperm and the egg, every single time a baby is born, for every baby ever born, for every human being ever born, for every animal ever born, two unconscious immaterial, material stuff through blind chemistry then create, this complex living experiencing being. And that is called the hard problem of consciousness in consciousness studies. It's like, how does something come out of nothing? How does unconscious matter create consciousness? And that hasn't been explained. For me, I take a panpsychist view that consciousness is an inseparable part of the universe, like electricity or electromagnetism or gravity. It's just an aspect of energy. Everything is energy in different forms. And to like what I've learned about the mind, just to get to like the why this is important, is it connects me. No longer is a human being separate, superior to the rest of the world, to the rest of the planet. It deeply embeds me in this world, deeply interconnects me. And for me, then I have a sense of reverence and a sense of the sacred, not just to all the human beings that exist, but all the plant life, every animal, and this beautiful planet that supports us.
Yeah, beautifully shared. I actually, just to draw on Michael Levin again, he's found that even cells seem to have intelligence and problem-solving abilities, which is difficult, at least from his perspective currently, to say they're not in some way intelligent. So, I mean, that's getting really small. And as Sam Harris says, the only thing we know for sure is that we're conscious.
Yeah.
It's really,
Yeah.
that's the immediate certainty. I mean, yeah, where consciousness comes from, if it is fundamental, I guess still a bit of a question mark, but it is interesting that so many of the old traditions did always put it at the forefront, really, in many
Absolutely.
ways. I think there's some differences in how they would describe it, but yeah, it is consistent, and they have been impressive in a lot of their foresight and insight. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah. And that is really changing because, yeah, many wisdom traditions understood that intuitively. I do love Sam Harris as he's like, it could be that consciousness is a process of unconscious biological processes, but I don't know what that sentence means, and I don't think anyone else knows what that sentence means either. It's like,
Right.
what does it mean to like for it to be an emergent property? Because it's just we don't, despite we've learned about how black holes are formed at the center of our galaxy and how stars are born, and yet this noggin we is still deeply mysterious. Like there's nothing about the physical brain that would say it's conscious. It's only because we are conscious that we know that the brain is really important for consciousness. Just one model of the universe that I love around consciousness is the Neo-Confucian model, which sees Li and Qi, two words that we've been talking about a lot. So Li is pattern, Qi energy. So they see the whole universe as patterned energy. So they don't need to make the distinction between matter and consciousness being separate, but everything is patterned energy, no separation.
Your journey, you must have faced a lot of challenges. What were some of the key challenges that you faced, both on the mountain and making the film?
Mm. I like to tell stories, and one story, like philosophical stories, one philosophical story from the Taoist, which is probably the most famous one, is there was a old man and his son who were farmers, and one day one of their horses disappeared, and all the neighbors came around and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry you lost your horse." And the old man said, "Who knows if it's good fortune or bad fortune? Who knows?" Next day, the horse comes back with three horses, and all the neighbors came and said, "Wow, such good luck! Amazing! Aren't you happy?" And the old man said, "Who knows what is good luck or bad luck? We'll see." Next day, the army come because there's a war on the border of the Chinese Empire, and they have to take everyone's horses away. And not only that, they have to take all the horses away. Bad luck. All the horses gone again. The old man says, "We'll see." Then next day, the son had an injury and his arm was broken into pieces. And the neighbors said, "Oh, what bad luck, bad luck." And the old man said, "We'll see." Next day, the army come back. Not only did they want the horses, they wanted the young men as well. All of the men in the village were taken to be sent to be cannon fodder in the war. And all the neighbors said, "Wow, what good luck that your son broke his arm." And the old man said, "We'll see, we'll see." So that's a beautiful story which can help us break out of our normal ways of understanding challenge. Challenge is a bad thing. Oh, woe betide me that all of these things happen to me. My life is such a hardship. And this is this smile that we've talked about, like actually, to begin to change our relationship to the challenge, to begin to be able to work with the flow. And so what happens when we meet challenge is that our comfort zone expands and we begin to be more resilient because we're not just caving in and crumbling in the face of challenge, but we begin to actually trust ourselves, trust that this too shall pass. We can't stop the waves, but we can learn to surf. So for me, yeah, like loads of challenge, and yeah, the anxiety that started off the whole journey. Then yeah, like the being single and not many friends and working by myself, and then living by myself and just not really feeling enough connection and feeling loneliness. Then yeah, like with the team and financial instability of like having this big vision and then like financially being really tight. And yeah, I'd say that I what I have developed over my time is actually enjoying it. It's like actually almost like when I got frauded a couple of years ago and lost all of my money. It's like it was a huge energetic challenge, and it was comfort eating and stopped my meditation practice. It was tough, but I learned so much from it. And like there's two types of people that are happy when bad things happen to them: comedians and Dharma teachers. Because like then I could like in my next Tai Chi class is like, guys, I'm really hurting, and these are the things that I'm really calling upon. This is where my practice there really is when I'm calling upon these tools to support me. And so if we can begin to create that perspective, then that's when we can flow. We don't get in our own way. We don't get stuck in the depression for years. It's like, okay, well, I'm depressed for this week or these days. Like, what do I need? Get to the need, and to meet this current moment with compassion. Then that's how we can flow and get out our own way.
I agree, and the story you shared just emphasizes it beautifully. They're really opportunities. Every one of them is an opportunity. I think Bhante Vimalaramsi used to say that the hindrances, to put it in Buddhist terminology, are teachers, and I think
Mm,
that's what you have beautifully emphasized. That really, each time we do have adversity, difficulty, the mental tension or resistance, then we just have an opportunity to not respond in the old pre-programmed way and to
Mm,
reprogram or to let go of the way that we were approaching things. And then through that repetition, we could start to change how we respond. And through that, we change our actual perception and the way that we see reality. We
mm,
don't necessarily paint it with this negative or um, a different picture. And perhaps we get a little bit closer. And then we start to enjoy things more. We also have the opportunity to be kinder. And yeah, that's just probably one final thing I'd love to chat to you about, actually. Since doing this podcast and the course that we did, I've really noticed that there's a lot of emphasis in Buddhism on sila, which is like
mm,
ethics,
yeah.
doing good, or kindness. And I didn't really realize the difference that made. The biggest sort of insight into that was I volunteered on a retreat that I wanted to sit. Like I really just wanted to meditate. And I didn't really want to do the helping because I had quite a big job. I had to manage the whole retreat. But I knew by doing so that my friend who would normally manage the retreat could sit, which he really wanted to do. So I just did it anyway. And then during that retreat, there would be small opportunities to do a meditation. And when I did, I just noticed such a big difference in the quality of my sit, my ability to let
Mm,
go and to have self-love, compassion, and to generate loving kindness was so increased. It made me realize, wow, even small things, small gestures, repetitions of kindness, perhaps giving to charity, or like your life now is, I would say, is service.
mm, yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to hear how that's changed your practice and life.
Mm, yeah, so much beauty in that. Thank you. Yeah, and that morality and integrity is so important, and the Taoist vision on that is well, Confucianism, which was the dominant philosophy at the time, is very much about morality and ethics, and to be really strong with that. But the Taoist critique of it is that it can lead to hypocrisy, where you kind of have the performative morality. You do the rules and rituals, you put your hat on the right way and put your meditation mat the right way, and then you're a good person. Whereas actually they felt that wasn't an inside out integrity. It's like, don't be a good person because you want to be seen as a good person. Just be in virtue, or de is the word that they use for it. And yeah, to be in that without there being an attachment or a performance. And yeah, that moral dimension in our current society is absolutely not talked about. It's like the kind of the free hand of the market, of the capitalist model of Adam Smith saying, it's not the benevolence of the butcher that you get your morning bread. It's through their self-interest of the monetary exchange, which is true. It's like all of these, billions of interactions happening around the world because of money means that we don't have to have, governments telling how many loaves of bread to send to Bristol and how many to Auckland. It just happens through the market, so that there is beauty to that. But then what is missed is this moral dimension of like, actually, it's not okay to be extracting fossil fuels, drill baby drill, in a global climate crisis. And it's not okay just to, yeah, like manipulate people in order to make money. And, if we can use the power of the market grounded in compassion and integrity and serving life, that keyword service, then things begin to change. And service, yeah, no, that's what deeply nourishes me, and is what I, intend to do in my life, is to serve life. As I understand my interconnection, then that becomes my motivation. And it's such a big difference from success. So success is the programming that we're told by our society. Be successful, get the job, get the raise, get the house, get the kids, get the wife, and then you'll be a successful, valuable person. Everyone will praise you, and then you'll feel great. The problem with that is that we will always then be looking for success in the future outside of us. And then by definition, that means we're unsuccessful, so that we feel there's a lack. And then that lack creates craving. creates a constant chase, and we train our nervous system to always be finding happiness outside of ourselves in the future. We never know how to enjoy the fruits of our labor. We never know how to rest. Service, by contrast, feels good whether it's big or small. To actually take a week to be with your grandmother, can there be parts of our society that, shouldn't you be working and being productive? But can we create a world in which that is a very, very valued and celebrated act of service? And if more of us, can come to this energy of how can I contribute as opposed to how can I succeed, then the world begins to change. So my theory of change is that when we change our story, we change the world. So, self-development is a trigger for me. It's you're not anxious and depressed and lonely because of your own fault. It's we live in an isolating, disconnecting, discombobulated world. And it's understandable that you are, feeling discombobulated. And so let's change that. And let's come together to change that. How do we do that? Firstly, to resource ourselves. Self-care is not self-indulgence. From that place of a strong foundation, then we can then serve. And then as we serve, we begin to change the story, that actually a more beautiful world is possible. And if we come together, we can change the systems that shape our world.
I think that's incredibly put. And yeah, if you do want some inspiration, I would highly recommend checking out George's film. If people want to find out more about you, where should they look?
Yeah, so the film, I'd love you to watch it. And then I run retreats now. We're trying to do a retreat in America, probably 2026 now, but 2 in the UK this year. And that's a beautiful time to come embody and come into community and to move together, to meditate together. And then if you want to support me in the team, we've got Taoist Wellness Online, which is now the biggest Tai Chi school in the world. And that subscription, with that, you get so much learning from me and Master Gu. And also then you can support our mission, Balance is Possible.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you. And I'm hearing all this beautiful learning and insight that you have gone on your journey. And so, really excited to see how you can continue to serve your community.
Thank you. To quote one of my teachers, Linda Clare, keep going. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode with George Thompson. Just a quick reminder that we recently released 30 Days of Meditation, Science and Bliss, which is free on the app due to the kindness of our founder. Whether you can help us financially or not, you can donate on the website, or you could simply drop us a comment or a like or subscribe to the channel. We thank you so much, and we can't wait to continue bringing the latest in neuroscience and contemplative practices.